Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Kubeir. I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant. This channel is all about Canadian immigration news, updates, things you should do, things you should not. And today, being a Saturday, we are back with another episode of the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup, where we're going to talk to you about the different PNP draws that have happened, some small changes that have happened with the processes. Of course, the strike is now over, and does it have any implications? So let's get cracking. Starting with the quote of the week: the positive thinker sees the invisible, feels the intangible, and achieves the impossible, said Winston Churchill. I know he's not a favorite of a lot of people, but the point is not about him as a person, but the point is about the quote itself. A positive thinker, if you think positively, obviously you can see whatever is invisible, right? I mean, because it's in your mind. You can see with your positivity, you can make that happen. You can see the intangible, you can feel it, and of course, based on those, seeing the invisible, feeling the intangible, then only then you can also then achieve the impossible, because that's the only way to do it. So that's my positive quote of the day. Hope you can make it yours as well. This is the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Stay up to date with us on the Canadian immigration news and trends on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, of course, and then on the Twitter as well. Been pretty active on Twitter lately. Starting with the PNP draws, Alberta in the month of April has conducted 3 different draws, which is pretty cool because otherwise we don't hear much about it. And they also publish their draws quite late after having conducted the draws. These draws, on the 20th of April, they invited 152 candidates, and the people who got the invitation in this particular draw had the family connection, which basically means that they had a sibling or a parent in Alberta, and their CRS score was between 300. The lowest CRS score was only 300, and of course their knock had to be in the demand list, which obviously Alberta never really shares with us. Then there was another draw on the 24th of April. They invited 124 candidates, this time from the construction occupations, which is pretty cool because at least now Alberta has given us some indication of what the occupations they are targeting. So this time it was a construction occupation, and the lowest minimum CRS was 301. Alberta is pretty much like a jackpot if you hit it, in the sense like when you don't have any other options from Ontario or Saskatchewan, because the CRS scores over there with Ontario is very high, Saskatchewan points remain high, then Alberta comes to your rescue with a score of only 301, which is pretty cool, as I said. The final draw, which happened in April, was on the 25th, and they invited 8 candidates from the designated healthcare pathway and the Alberta job offer stream, and the lowest candidate had a CRS score of 316. Ontario did a good one. It happened yesterday. They conducted a tech draw under the human capital priorities stream. They invited, this was actually a very, very big draw, 1,863, big draw. Obviously, 1,863 candidates have been invited from the express entry pool. The CRS score range was between 475 and 482. We have told you this plenty of times before as well, if you follow this channel, that their high point is always 1 point less than the last express entry draw. They always play it in tandem with the express entry draw. So the last express entry draw was at 483. Therefore, their high cutoff is at 482, and the low cutoff is at 475, because that many number of candidates were able to fit in the number of people that they wanted to invite. So 1,863, congratulations if you're one of them. This was, as I said, a tech draw, which basically means these 9 knock codes were eligible. Earlier, it used to be 6 when it was the old knock system, knock 2016. Now with the new tier system, because the knock have changes and some IT knock codes have been segregated. Therefore, now you have these 9 knock codes: 20012, 21211, 21223, 230, 231, 232, 233, 234, and 21311. And if and only if your knock code was selected as primary knock code, any of these knock codes, and if your CRS score range was between 475 and 482, then you should have received an invitation in your express entry profile. If you're still wondering whether you received it or not, please go and check your express entry profile. It should be there. You now have 45 days to submit your application, And this basically means that I know a lot of people are still contemplating what will happen. Should I wait? Should I continue? Should I not go ahead? Which happens every single time the Ontario draw happens. The last tech draw that happened, almost everybody who had received a notification of interest, all of them should have received a direct express entry invitation as well, because the scores actually did drop. IRCc conducted those three mega big draws of 7,000, 7,000 each in a span of only 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And therefore, most of the people did receive their invitations. So all those notifications of interest that Ontario sent basically went down the drain. And probably this is one reason why Ontario chose to make this big draw of 1,800 people. Uh, to be very honest, it's pretty good, because anybody who is below, and again, don't hold a gun to my head, because I know people get upset with this, but this is all speculation. This is all opinion based. This is all based on how the numbers play out. First of all, disclaimer, IRCc can do anything, right? Because they are IRCc and they have they know better as to what's happening with the draws. They know better as to what's happening with the invitations. And they also know better as to how many invitations they have in pool that they want to invite, and what the quotas are. But in my opinion, for the scores to drop is a bit difficult. I will not say it cannot happen, because hey, they did conduct 7,000 draws, right? I mean, 7,000 ITA draws. I mean, who would have thought? I at least never thought in my wildest of dreams that could have happened. So they can definitely come out and do a big draw again, for whatever the reason might be. I don't see that as a possibility or a likelihood, again, based on today's numbers, trends, data that is available. And if they don't conduct one of those big draws, then the scores for them to drop significantly looks a bit difficult, because each 2 weeks we have seen since July onwards, significant number of people do get added to the express entry pool, except for the last 2 weeks. I mean, the last time that the express entry draw happened. And why it happened over there, I do not know. I think possibly could be because of the strike. A lot of people were scared. They did not decline their ITAs, and they thought, okay, maybe the strike would mean that there may not be another draw. And that could be one of the reasons a lot of people didn't decline their ITAs, got back into the pool. There is also some sort of a change going on, whereby we have seen the total number of express entry profiles has dropped significantly. It had gone up to 240,000 plus. Now it is at 230,000. So almost 10,000 profiles have dropped, or rather are less in the pool. Could be for any number of reasons. I honestly do not know what the reason might be, but that only suggests that at a time when more people will enter the pool, and mind you, Canada's graduation season, April is one when one of the semesters gets over, and a lot of people do complete their studies by April. These are the people who have started in September, are completing one-year programs. So September, fall intake and winter intake, they complete the fall and winter semesters they complete, and by now they would have completed their studies. If they've received their completion letters, that basically means their points go up. Also, people who would have done it last year have now completed 1 year of work experience should have gone. So the point I'm trying to make, before I sort of going in all different directions, that in my opinion the scores may not go down that quickly or the way you anticipate. So don't be in a rush to sort of write off Ontario. Hold on. I mean, because you have 45 days to submit your application, which basically means that you can actually wait for 2 draws to see how express entry plays out, and then you can make your decision. In my opinion, the next express entry draw may not come down. It may actually stay same, or may even go up. And even if it comes down, it may not come down drastically. There were nearly 1,700 people still in the express entry pool at remaining after the last draw, with the score of 481 and above. If roughly 2,500 to 3,000 people do get added into the pool, that is what we have seen every 2 weeks, then the likelihood of the scores dropping seems a bit improbable at this point of time. But let's see how that goes. We will find out on the 10th of May if and when the express entry draws happen. So for people below 480, definitely, if you can, if you don't have a problem, if you don't mind spending $1,500, you should go with it. Other than that, as I said, 2 draws, you definitely can afford to wait. And by that time, you will have a much more better understanding whether the draws or the scores will come down, or should you take Ontario or should you not. All right. Saskatchewan also did a big draw, and I'm stressing on the word big because they tend to sort of, they haven't been conducting draws that frequently. So Saskatchewan they did one a couple of weeks back, and thankfully they've done another one on the 3rd of May. They invited 1,032 candidates under their two very popular streams. First one is Express Entry, second one is OID. The score was not very high. It was actually 68, which is pretty good. 68 score reasonably is quite nice, to be very honest. There are a lot of people in that score. The knock codes that were invited are also, once again, a lot of them are IT knock codes. Okay. So looks like IT is back in season, but there are some other knock codes as well, and 7 series, and there is an 8203 as well. I don't remember the knock codes anymore. I used to know all of them earlier with knock 2016. Now I think it'll take a bit of time to get back to knowing all these knock codes. But yeah, as I said, 68 was the score, 293 invited under Express under OID, and 739 were invited under Express Entry, which is very nice. Arima, Quebec skilled worker also conducted a draw, but this again, they don't publish their draws immediately, so we got to know quite late. This was on the 20th of April, about 3 weeks back. They invited 1,020 candidates from the Quebec skilled worker program to apply for the permanent selections, and all candidates had scores equal to or above 598 and valid job offer outside the metropolitan area. In other news, and we do have some other news that we want to talk to you about. I forgot about one. Let me see if I can pull that up. Yes, I have it here. So first one is immigration systems are back because the strike, finally IRCc strike was concluded on the 1st of May and everybody got back to work. Initially, the workers from the Treasury Board came back to work, and eventually from 5th last, I think, 5th, I think, even the CRA workers were back. So basically the strike is now completely concluded. There is no strike anymore. Everybody is back to work. Hopefully I do not know what the terms finally were agreed upon, but I hope they got what they were looking for. And on the 1st of May, after the strike ended, Sean Fraser has told reporters that close to 100,000 applications were not processed during the work stoppage. And he said that the backlog is not bad as the backlog seen during pandemic. Duh, I mean, like, hello, that COVID went on for nearly 2 years and you're comparing 8-10 days of work stoppage to pandemic. I mean, it doesn't matter. He expects that in months ahead, IRCc will return to the pre-pandemic service standards. But let's hear it from the horse's mouth. Hold on. So that was Sean Fraser telling you what happened with the streams and the work stoppages. But let's look at this one. He tweeted very recently. So one of the members of parliament, I don't honestly remember the name again, she advocated for Pakistani applications to be processed sooner because they were taking a long time, which is all right. And then from that advocacy, Sean Fraser then replied back that, hey, attention Pakistani visa applicants, visa processing times. We're talking about visit visa applications, okay? The visit visa application processing times are not 802 as is shown on the IRCc website under the processing time. And currently, a complete TRV application from Pakistan will be processed in 60 days, and we expect it to come to 30 days. The website shows 802 days because we are processing older applications when the borders were closed due to pandemic. And we have reduced the backlog for Pakistani TRV significantly from 55,000 to less than 15,000. That's what he said. Okay, which, to be very honest, seems like quite a fair proposition that, okay, system is showing the wrong number. But then my mind went into a bit of a trizzy because what does that even mean? So, for example, if your backlog has reduced significantly from 55,000 to 15,000, and obviously you are getting so many new applications who you are claiming you are processing within 60 days, then shouldn't the average processing time that shows up on your website reduce instead of increasing? I mean, this is simple maths. We learned it in I don't know, fifth, sixth standard, right? That if you're if you're trying to count averages, and the averages of has reduced from 55,000 to 15,000 of the applications, that it's taking longer versus the newer applications which are being processed faster, then why is the system showing, why is the IRCc system showing 802 days to process? So this was something which got my head all scratching. But hey, IRCc is making all these claims, so that's how it goes. But they're back on track, and hopefully they will keep working, and they will get our applications processed sooner than later, and we should start seeing the pre-pandemic processing levels back again. Express entry definitely was quite fast in the recent times, because they were processing applications in definitely less than 6 months for sure. There were applications being processed between 3 to 4 to 5 months was quite common, and under 6 months is what they had really achieved. Also, same thing with spousal sponsorship applications. They were actually processing applications within 1 year. We were seeing inside Canada being processed is as flat and as soon as 2 to 3 months. I mean, obviously on an average about 7 to 8 months, but on outside Canada was taking roughly about 8 to 12 months. So that way, I agree, the application processing was fast. It's just the visit visas, which is just not, I'm not able to get a hang of why exactly does it take so long, and why do we still show it's been taking 800 days, 700 days. If you go to the CICC website and you see different countries processing time, except India. India right now shows 22 days, but Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, Rwanda, Ghana, Nigeria, as I said, Pakistan, over there, it shows ridiculous numbers of days, like 400, 500, 700, 800 days. So yeah, that is something which is still a bit of a mystery. Increase in the minimum wages. So that's good news for the workers in Canada. The minimum wages are now being increased effective October. Ontario will go up to 16.55 from 15.50. Manitoba will go to 15.30. Saskatchewan will go up to $14 an hour. Nova Scotia to 15. Newfoundland and Labrador to 15. Prince Edward Islands also up to 15. So more wages means more spending power, means inflation coming there as well. IRCc updates express entry proof of funds requirement. Now, this became another laughing issue, right? What happened was express entry, IRCc updated their proof of funds requirement actually on the 25th of April. So suddenly people started getting their express entry profiles becoming ineligible because they had chosen their fund as per the old requirements of the proof of funds before. And if you had chosen the exact amount or close to that amount, and now with the new fund requirement, that amount was no longer applicable, so your express entry profile was becoming ineligible. And so many people suddenly found their profiles ineligible and scratching their heads and did not know why it was becoming ineligible. And out of the blues, then suddenly on 2nd of May, IRCc finally comes up with the announcement that the proof of funds have been changed, but retrospectively from the 25th of April. So what does that mean? That basically means for people who have not received their ITAs, who have not submitted their PR applications, who do not have their AOR, everybody who has a profile in the express entry, you should have updated your proof of funds, that's on your screens now, to this amount. Or more than this, as applicable to you based on your family size. Family of one is now, rather single person, is now 13,757. Earlier it was 13,310. Family of two would be 17,127. Family of three is 21,055, and so on. People who have already submitted their application have an AOR. You guys don't need to do anything. You've already submitted. End of the story. People who have an ITA already. IRCc has again tweeted. Again, it's not on their website. They have tweeted, and imagine how many people actually check the tweets, right? So they tweeted and said people who have received their ITA, they do not need to update their proof of funds as per the new ones. But my suggestion, my opinion, my advice to you would be, please do it anyways. Why do you want to get stuck with some program assistant or some new officer who's trying to check and forgotten that IRCc had tweeted and suddenly delays your application? I'm not saying it will be refused. I'm not saying it will be rejected. I'm just saying it may delay because of the review. He might say the funds are less. Somebody else might say funds are less or not. And somebody has to make a decision. So if you have an ITA, you haven't submitted your PR application, you may as well update your proof of funds and also provide additional funds. It's your money. It will remain in your account. There's no harm in it. CEC, Canadian Experience class, you don't need proof of funds, so please do not freak out with this. People who have arranged or valid job offer, which basically means you have an LMIA or you are on a closed work permit, completed your 1 year and have a valid job offer. For you guys, you also do not need proof of funds. Everybody else, whether you're inside Canada, outside Canada, whether you're on postgraduate work permit or you're an open work permit, you need proof of funds. Even if you're a PNP, you need proof of funds. Okay, so please make sure you have this amount corrected, and so that you can file a proper application. That's basically it in terms of what we had for our presentation. Connect with us on the social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, of course. And if you're still here, then boop on the like button so that this video goes out to more people. And of course, if you haven't subscribed, what the hell are you waiting for? Right? Come on, right? Hit the subscribe button, man. Guys, come on, get that done. Right, so let's move on to the next segment, which is questions and answers, and we'll get cracking. So before I get to the questions and answers, this is also the thing with the people who have received their Ontario notification of interest, also with Saskatchewan notifications of interest. A lot of people, their profiles have become ineligible with this proof of fund thing, or their profiles may become ineligible, or their profiles may expire. If any of this happens to you, don't freak out, don't worry. Create a new Express Entry profile. If you haven't submitted your Ontario application or Saskatchewan application, then you proceed with the new profile details in your application after creating a new one. And in your explanation, do mention that you had this profile number earlier, but it expired. And upload the document or a letter that you will get from IRCc, which says that this profile has expired and that you've created a new one, and that, you know, this is your new Express Entry profile number and job seeker code. So don't worry, you will not lose your nomination. Your nomination can continue, your application can continue. Just simply take this extra step. If you have already submitted your Ontario application, you have already submitted your Saskatchewan application, and after that, if your profile becomes ineligible, or if your profile expires, then create a new Express Entry profile, and again inform the province that, you know, your profile has expired and this is the new Express Entry profile, this is the job seeker code, so that they can then connect and link your application to the new profile and then give you the nomination in the new profile. It's not a problem. Only place where this is a very, very, very big problem is Alberta. Alberta does not transfer nominations to a new profile. So if you have an Alberta invitation, you have to treat your Express Entry profile with so much of care. You cannot do anything with it, or you should not do anything with it which will make it ineligible, or you cannot let it expire. You have to get the nomination before that, because if that happens, Alberta does not give you the nomination in a new profile. Your nomination is pretty much lost and you have to start from the scratch. So apart from that, all other provinces are quite flexible, not only Ontario or Saskatchewan, but other provinces also. If your profile expires, you can inform them. They will give you the nomination in the new profile. So that is not a problem at all. Right, moving to the questions now. When can I expect biometrics? Well, if you have processed your application, then whenever the time is due for your application to be processed, I guess you would get it then. I do not know about the timelines as much because each application is different, each process is different. So you'll have to basically wait, because even if I tell you the timeline, it's not like it's patthar ki lakir. It's not like it's set in stone. It will still vary, and only IRCc can give you that as to how much time it will take. Worked for an employer in Malaysia for 3 years, was in Malaysia for the first 1.5 years, worked from India for the rest of time. PCC obtained for the duration of stay in Malaysia. Is it good enough? Well, of course it is good enough. If you have provided the PCC for your entire duration of stay in that country, then it's good enough. Yes. Visit visa, as per your advice, is through offline. How much time does it take vis-a-vis online? Visit visa application is only online. There is no offline visit visa applications. So I'm not sure what you're referring to. What I am referring to is a new portal versus the old portal. If you are planning to submit your application through the new portal, then you should know that the decision will come quite fast, but the refusal rates are quite high. Old portal, or the GC key as people refer to, In that, the decisions are more favorable in terms of average, but it can take much longer. So you have to decide and choose accordingly. Saskatchewan international skilled worker, finding birth certificate is very, very hard. What to do? Well, find the birth certificate because it's a mandatory requirement. If you cannot get it, then you have to go to the municipal area wherever you live, and look for a not found certificate if your birth was not registered. And then provide alternative documents for the registration of your birth in terms of your 10th certificate, 12th certificate, get a letter from the gazetted officer confirming your date of birth, provide Aadhaar card, PAN card, those kind of documents to establish your date of birth. If the job titles are different and responsibilities are same that matches the knock of administrative officer, is there any issue with SINP due to rigidness? Well, SINP is quite strict, no doubt about it, but at the end of the day, the knock code is determined based on your job description. And that is what matters. Applying for parents visit visa, is it okay to select a father as the principal applicant if all the assets and funds are shown under the mother's name? Well, if all the funds and assets are in mother's name, so why can't you make the mother the principal applicant? Why does the father have to be the principal applicant unless there is a different reason? So yeah, there is no harm in making your mother the principal applicant, right? For a translated document, is it correct to upload a scanned copy of the original, a scanned copy of the translation by a certified translator? Yes, that is enough, as long as the translation has the stamp of the translator and also indicates that that person is a certified translator and mentions that person's registration number or license number or certificate number. So then you're good to go. I got my medicals cleared but did not receive biometric instruction letter along with it in FSWO. Do I have to worry about it considering all people are getting it the same day? No, you don't have to worry about it. It happens sometimes. In some cases, these things can go back and forth, but don't worry about it. You will get it. CRS 493, but did not get Ontario nomination. Do I need to create a separate profile? You did not get Ontario notification of interest because the higher cutoff was 482. Anybody whose score was more than 482 did not get the Ontario's notification of interest. You don't need to do anything because that is taking into consideration that in the next express entry draw, you might get the invitation anyways, right? So it doesn't make sense to give you the notification of interest, which will be wasted. Ankur Saxena, thank you for the super chat. Applied for postgraduate work permit in January and work permit extension for my spouse. Still review hasn't started. TRV has expired. Can we do flag polling? No, you cannot do flag polling if your application is already in process. You can, of course. You can definitely do flag polling. But the fact is, because you've already applied online, CBSA is going to ask you to wait for your decision. So until and unless you have an urgent requirement for your postgraduate work permit, for example, you have a letter from the employer and the employer is insisting that you have a work permit. Well, then if you have that in writing, you can take that and go to the border, you can flag poll and you can request them to issue your work permit at the port of entry. And that is definitely a possibility. For federal skilled worker points in last 10 years, I have 2 gaps. Sorry, I lost that. I am not sure what you're trying to ask me. If you're trying to ask me how will you calculate your points, 67 points for federal skilled workers, then you will calculate your work experience points based on the continuous work experience. So if you have any period of continuous work experience, you will calculate that period of work for the calculation of eligibility points. I have received NOI from Ontario, but IELTS score is expiring in a month and also age factor points will reduce after a month. What to do? Continue with your application. There is no problem. Once you have submitted your application to Ontario, your IELTS expiry will not matter to Ontario and your age, you're growing older, will also not matter to Ontario. But of course, for express entry, you will need to retake your IELTS so that you have valid IELTS. Otherwise, your profile will become invalid. And you will also need a valid IELTS for your application to express entry once you get your nomination. But for Ontario, it will not make any difference. Please continue with your application. I applied through PGWP opt-in policy on the 15th, still no confirmation. My current PGWP is expiring on May 20th. What should I do if no decision is made by the end? Nothing. You can continue working. You should have received your authorization to work. Now, if you do not receive a work permit until the end of July, then at that point of time, you will need to apply for a new, you will need to apply for the extension of work permit. And this time you will have to do it with the restoration. So that is what you can do. But you can continue working if you have the authorization to work email. Today is my birthday. Well, happy birthday, Pratiksha. Should I write and add an LOE to my EAPR for losing 5 points? I have FSW ITA, score preview at EAPR is less than score and which invitation was received. Don't worry about it. If you have already received your ITA and after that your birthday has happened, which is today, your score, though it reflects as you having lost 5 points, it will not matter. When they are assessing your application, they will account for the fact that you have lost 5 points due to change in age after ITA, but it will not impact. So basically, when they are calculating it, they will not refuse your application because of this factor. You don't need to write your LOE. I mean, but if it makes you feel better, then of course go ahead. But don't worry, it will not make any difference. If you read up, and you know what, let's read up anyways. So because sometimes these things do get confusing for people. So let's read it up anyways. So on your screens now is the IRCc website, of course. This is the assessment of applications under A11.2. As I scroll down, change in circumstances, requirement to maintain MEC, requirement to maintain the CRS score, evaluating under A11.2. There you go. Exemption to the section A11.2, candidates whose birthday occurs after they receive an ITA. An applicant may have a birthday after they receive an ITA, but before they submit their EAPR, the change in age may lower their CRS score below the lowest score of the round of invitations. It may also result in the application no longer meeting the requirements. Okay. And consequently, no longer meeting the MEC, which is minimum eligibility criteria. When a change in age results in candidate no longer meeting the MEC, and officers should consider applying the public policy to exempt candidates from permanent residence from certain age-based restrictions or requirements. And therefore, this consideration can result in an exemption from the refusal. You see the word exemption. So your application will not be refused. You do not have to worry. This public policy grants an exemption to applicants who may be refused for failing to meet the FSW program requirements when their birthday occurs between ITA and EAPR. Okay, so this is where it is. This is the law. This is where it says very, very clearly that you don't have to worry if your birthday occurs between ITA and EAPR. Okay, hope that helps you. That was my birthday gift for you. Happy birthday again. Anurag says, I'm on a 2-year open work permit, came to Canada recently. Officer did not put a stamp on my passport. Is it true that in such cases, I can only stay in Canada in 6 months? If so, what can be done? If you are on a 2 years open work permit, did you get a work permit? If you have a work permit, then that is your status in Canada. You can continue to stay in Canada until the validity of your work permit. You are not a visitor. The 6 months stay in Canada is only for people who are coming to Canada as a visitor. Just received my renewed passport, have my biometrics appointment scheduled for 11th, have raised web form, but haven't received mail yet. What should it be okay to give the bio with the new passport? Carry your old and the new passport so that you can complete your biometrics. Applied for mom's visitor visa last month. It got approved in 17 days, although the website was showing more than 600 days. Well, congratulations. That's pretty good. It's just that it doesn't happen with everybody. I applied for postgraduate work permit in Jan and also work permit extension if my spouse and study visa extension of my son. Still review hasn't started. TRV has expired. Oh, we just answered that, right? FSW application with AOR Jan, not a single update from the beginning. Can I request GCMS notes to verify what's going on with my application? Yes, you can. You can definitely request for GCMS notes, but you are still within the 6 months average processing times, and also give it a bit of a break to say that this was a bit of a delay because of the strike as well. But the fact that you haven't even received your biometric, that also means that probably your medicals are still being reviewed. If your medicals are still being reviewed, it basically means your R10 has not yet been completed and your medicals are being reviewed. So I hope everything is fine with you in terms of your health situation. And if everything is good there, then eventually, once the medicals have been assessed, once the medicals have been completed and approved and passed, then you will get your biometrics request. So you can apply for GCMS notes, not necessarily you will get any information there. If I state 20,000 as proof of funds, do I need to give documents for 20,000 or 15,000 is fine? You need to provide, even if you say 20,000, no matter if you say 100,000, no matter say 200,000, you need to show at least the amount which is applicable to your family size or more than that. Anything less will get into trouble. I am currently sitting in the pool with 469, will be losing points. Any hope of getting invitation? Well, it's looking for sure very, very difficult. What you can do is probably look at the PNP options or look at other ways of how you can improve your scores. We have done several videos where we have discussed what other options you can explore. So maybe you can take a look at those. For reasons of CRS, I withdrew my profile in which my wife accompanies me to redo another profile in which I declare myself, but my wife is not accompanying me. What will the officer think? I don't know. I'm not sure. What have you done? What have you not done? Why have you done so many changes? But as long as you submit your application with proper documentation, then officer doesn't have to think anything. If earlier your wife was accompanying you, then your wife is not accompanying you. Well, people change their mind, circumstances happen, circumstances occur, and those can result in you having to make certain decisions, and that's absolutely fine. You can explain it and you can move on from there. Does Ontario application require PCC? You do not require PCC for the Ontario nomination application. You will require it only after you have received the nomination for your express entry application. I work as a project coordinator. I got a full-time offer. The title is project coordinator. NOC remains the same. Will it be a separate entry as one? So first you were an intern, now you are a coordinator. It will be the same thing. If the knock code is the same, you can always explain it in your letter of explanation. Can we use gift deed for Ontario's human capital priorities? Yes, you can. There is no problem with gift deed in human capital priorities stream. No issues there. Done 1 year of postgraduate, got an offer of 1 year contract work. Does the contract work help in CEC? Yes, it's absolutely fine. There is no problem with contract work as long as you are not self-employed. If you're self-employed, that is a problem. What is the processing time difference between new portal and GCK if applying for a visit visa from India? Which one would you suggest? Well, I would suggest the old portal or GCK because at least the approval rates are better, or the decisions are better there. With new portal, I have had horrible experience. I don't use the new portal at all anymore. CEC requires proof of funds. No, CEC does not require proof of funds. 493 did not get the notification of interest because obviously the score was at 482, high cutoff. I applied for PCC for work visa as I'm expecting to get the Calgary-based opportunity to be converted. Last phases of interview. Do I have to apply again for PCC for express entry ITA? Your PCC is valid for 6 months from the country of your residence. At the time you submit your application in express entry, if your PCC is still valid, then you do not need to get another one. My CR is 408. Which all provinces I can apply? Will Nova Scotia or Prince Edward work for me? Well, each province has a different program. They have a different stream, different criteria, different conditions. I cannot tell you where you might be eligible, where you may not be eligible. You will have to go through individual provincial programs websites to see where you might have an opportunity or not. 408, to be very honest, is a very, very low score. I don't see that happening in Ontario. Nova Scotia have not been conducting any draws. They conduct very rarely a draw. And if they do conduct a draw, and if they do find your profile to be of interest, they may invite you. Prince Edward Islands does not invite people from outside the province or outside Canada. They have a very small quota of nominations, and they tend to stick to the people who are in the province. You may look at Saskatchewan if you are eligible. You may look at a job offer from Alberta if you can find one and apply under that. Does IRCc process applications the rule of first submitted, first processed? Nope, they don't. They process it until the intake stage, until the R10 stage. It is first in, first out. After that, it all depends on which visa office, which visa officer, which case assistant, case analyst you have been assigned to, and what their processing queue is. It goes as per that. May I know when Ontario Master Graduate Stream Draw is going to happen? I don't know. No, but Ontario does not announce or publish the schedule of their draws. They will conduct it when they conduct it. So nobody knows when they will conduct one. I'm going to apply for CEC. For proof of funds, it says I have to show that I have sufficient funds to support myself. How much fund is sufficient? CEC does not need proof of funds. I am in Canada on postgraduate work permit. I'll be traveling to Pakistan. Can I do my medicals there? Can the medicals be done before receiving an ITA? Yes, you can do your medicals in Pakistan, and you can do your medicals before receiving an ITA. There is no problem. I have worked for past 3 years as senior software engineer. 1 year is Canadian experience as staff software engineer. Okay, but I don't see any question there, so we don't know what we are referring to. My letter of work experience, my manager, he one time wrote 4th of July and the other date he wrote 1st September. Is that extra off in the letter going to be problem? No, it's not a problem. I'm sorry, it took me some time to understand what you were referring to, what the concern was. No, it's not a problem. Do you need to submit birth certificate after receiving ITA? I haven't. Do I raise a web form? No, you don't need it. It is only needed. The birth certificate is only needed for dependent children in express entry. Otherwise, you don't need it. Shall I create Saskatchewan profile with 8 years experience? My 8th year will complete after 2 months. Is it fine? You should complete it. You should create it after you complete your work experience. Does CEC require proof of funds? No, it doesn't require proof of funds. I received 7.5 band in IELTS. Congratulations. Last time you should, under CEC experience, you should only consider points within the last 3 years, but not beyond 3 years. Canadian experience class. Okay, let's see this. It's not me, sir. I am not the one who says these things. It's IRCc who says these things. Hold on. I will just pull it up for you so you have it. There you go. Assessing work experience. Applications received on or after 16th of November 2022. Applicants must have at least 12 months of full-time Canadian skilled work experience or equivalent in part-time in one or more tier 1 within the 36 months before the date of application receipt. So 36 months means 3 years. It basically means in order for you to be eligible in Canadian experience class, your work experience has to be within the last 3 years. You can check IRCc website out. I'm not the one who's saying it or not saying it. That is the condition, that is the requirement of Canadian experience class. So if you are claiming yourself to be under CEC class, Canadian experience class, you should have your work experience. Canadian work experience should be within the last 3 years. Okay. In Canada on ICT work permit was raised on NOC consultant, but my actual work experience came across is 21,231. Can I use the 21,231 or I have to? Well, it all depends. You have to first figure out what was filed in your application. Is there a deviation, and why is there a deviation? Technically, what your work permit says, usually the work permit doesn't have, in most cases, doesn't have the NOC code, but it does have a NOC code. Then you can add a letter of explanation along with your application saying that your NOC code was on your work permit is 2171, but you are also performing role of 21231. And because majority of your duties are more towards 21231, hence your NOC code you're choosing as a 21231. Stuck on in review with IRCc since 6th of April on PR portal. Any reasons to worry? No, I don't think you have any reasons to worry. I'm not sure on PR portal. So basically, you're waiting for your COPR. You can always raise. So earlier, what was happening is that it was taking them 2 months to get it processed. You can always write them an email, same email address from which you received your Inside Canada approval. Ask them for a follow-up, but you don't have to worry about it. At times, maybe your picture is creating a problem, and of course, then there was a strike for 10 days, and then everything went to a bit of a halt. So yeah, just wait it out. You'll be fine. Can't hear you. I don't know. Perhaps check your speakers on your phone or your device. We'll just take last few questions before I scoot off. Harjot, thank you for the super chat. What is the scope for CEC candidate with 478 score in Express Entry? Well, 478 by itself is, in my opinion, looking a bit difficult unless IRCc conducts a draw, big draws, in my opinion. And if that happens, then I don't know. I mean, when that will happen or when that doesn't happen. IRCc has not conducted a CEC specific draw. If they conduct a CEC specific draw, then again, that is a possibility. There are a lot of changes anticipated in Express Entry towards the second half of the year. And in that, they will start conducting category-based draws. And if your knock code, if your profile is such, which is included in the category-based draw, then you might also be included in that, and your score might then be within the reach. But in the current circumstances of 478, it is looking a bit difficult at this point of time. You can always look at ways how you can improve your score, and if you can do that, then you may have an opportunity there. You keep skipping my question. Well, I don't do that intentionally. It does tend to happen. I'm trying to look for a question. I can't see it, so I'm gonna, I guess, skip it. But if no, I don't see it. Nope, don't see it. I got this one, but I don't see a question otherwise. Sorry about that. But yes, if I haven't answered your question, obviously there are plenty, and I'm sure I haven't answered a lot of questions. Please, by all means, do post your questions in the comment in the video below, and I will come back today and I'll happily respond to as many questions as I can. If you wish to make an appointment with me for your consultation to discuss your profiles one-on-one or your queries and concerns, then this is the link. By all means, make an appointment. I'll be happy to sort of discuss that with you. If you are looking for services to handle your application, by all means, that's our email. Drop us an email. We'll be happy to help you out there as well. Thank you so much for joining in today. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, because that would only help get this video out to more people. Stay safe, take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.